Shalom, Assalam, brothers and sisters. Highest praise to the Most High for His love, mercy, wisdom, and guidance. May those who desire and seek the truth receive this teaching. May the will of the Most High Yah be done. Today I want to share part 3 of Biblical Journeys, tracing the footsteps of our ancestors, specifically Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Moses. If your mind is not already blown, this part of our Biblical Journeys just might do it. In the book of Numbers, we learn how the children of Israel feared the people occupying the Promised Land, how they spoke against the Lord, and how they even contemplated returning to Egypt. In fact, almost from the time the children of Israel departed from Egypt, they seemed to not trust God. They even created a golden calf to worship when they were at Mount Sinai. Observing the behavior of the people since exiting Egypt sheds light on Deuteronomy 32 verse 5, which says, "They have corrupted themselves. Their spot is not the spot of His children. They are a perverse and crooked generation." Perverse, not perverted, means to willfully oppose or resist what is right or expected of you. Indeed, despite all that they had seen and experienced, the people lacked faith. As a result, in lieu of the Promised Land, they would wander the wilderness of South America until that generation which angered the Lord had passed away. What you see before you is the South American countries of Brazil, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, and others today. If you didn't already know, keep in mind that the distance across South America from east to west is over 3,000 miles at its widest point. That is actually wider than the USA. Indeed, its topography is quite vast as well, ranging from lush rainforests to desert dunes. Moreover, it is on this continent that the Israelites wandered after angering the Lord. The Lord even required Moses to record their journeys. Numbers 33. These are the journeys of the children of Israel, which went forth out of the land of Egypt with their armies under the hand of Moses and Aaron. And Moses wrote their goings out according to their journeys by the commandment of the Lord. And these are their journeys according to their goings out. Now, I'm not going to read all these scriptures, but I do want to point out where they went. There are 44 places recorded by Moses, beginning with them leaving the land of Ramesses and pitching their tents in Sukkot. From Sukkot to Etham, Pehaharath, Migdal, Marah, and Elam. Now again, excuse my pronunciation, but I think it is good to note that the names are not spelled the same, nor necessarily pronounced the same in every translation. Furthermore, one would definitely find it challenging to correlate most names from 1500 years ago with the equivalent locations today anyway. Nevertheless, they went from Elam to the Red Sea, the wilderness of Sin, Dafka, Alush, Rephidim, and the wilderness of Sinai. The children of Israel then pitched their tents at Kibroth-Hattaavah, Hazeroth, Rithmah, Rimmon Perez, Libnah, and Risa. About halfway through the 40 years, they then pitched tents at Kehelatha, Shapher, Haradah, Makheloth, Tahath, and Tara. From Tara, they went to Mithkah, Hashmonah, Moseroth, Renajekan, Horhakkedah, and Jokpatha. As the 40 years began to draw to a close, they leave Jokpatha and encamp at Ebrona, Ezioth Gaber, Kadesh, Mount Hor, Zamanah, Punan, and Oboth. The final places they would wander to were Ejih-Barim, Dibon-Gad, Ammon de Blathaim, Abarim, the plains of Moab by Jordan, and finally, quote, they pitched their tents by Jordan from Beth-Jesimoth even unto Abel-Shittim in the plains of Moab. Clearly, with over 40 locations in 40 years, the children of Israel likely did not stay in any one spot for more than a year before having to move on. However, during those 40 years, they learned much of the ways of the Lord from Moses, and many things happened to the people. However, our focus is on the big picture of the broader locations to which they journeyed, specifically the continents. Now, as they are in the plains of Moab, the 40 years end, and the Lord instructs Moses to speak to the children of Israel, who are now about to cross the Jordan and finally enter into the promised land known as the land of Canaan. It's known this way because Canaan dwelt there. And the Lord spake unto Moses in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when ye are passed over Jordan into the land of Canaan. Then ye shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, and destroy all their pictures, and destroy all their molten images, and quite pluck down all their high places. What many may not remember or realize is that the children of Gad and Reuben actually requested to keep land on this side of Jordan. Wherefore said they, If we have found grace in thy sight, let this land be given unto thy servants for a possession, and bring us not over Jordan. Their request was granted, provided they first crossed the Jordan with their brothers to help drive out the enemies, and afterward they could return to South America to have the land of Gilead for a possession. And the children of Gad and the children of Reuben answered, saying, As the Lord has said unto thy servants, so will we do. We will pass over armed before the Lord into the land of Canaan, that the possession of our inheritance on this side Jordan may be ours. So with few exceptions, all the adults who originally exited Egypt have died. Thus the time has come for their children who are now adults to enter into the promised land. Moses is now 120 years old and full of life. However, sadly, Moses also will die at 120 in the wilderness and not enter into the promised land. Graciously, the Lord causes him to see the land with his eyes. And the Lord said unto him, This is the land which I swear unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, saying, I will give it unto thy seed. I have caused thee to see it with thine eyes, but thou shalt not go over thither. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. Moreover, the Lord also instructs Moses before he dies to first speak to the children of Israel. And it came to pass in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of the month, that Moses spake unto the children of Israel, according unto all that the Lord had given him in commandment unto them. What we need to note here for future reference, that will become quite important for our understanding of the truth in their biblical journeys, is that it is the first day of the 11th month that Moses speaks to the children of Israel. Over the subsequent chapters, Moses delivers the laws, statutes, commandments, and judgments of the Lord. He also recounts to the people the exodus from ancient Egypt, their history over the last 40 years, as well as the cities they took. Moreover, he prophesies of both the near and distant future. Deuteronomy 30, verses 1 through 5. And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee, and shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shalt obey his voice, according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul. That then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity, and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee. If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers. It's important to note here that they have not yet gone into the promised land, nor have they been scattered from the land into all nations, as indicated in verses 1 and 3. Therefore, when Moses speaks of the people being scattered, of God returning and gathering the people, or in Deuteronomy 30 verse 5, when Moses tells the people that God will bring the people into the land which thy fathers possessed, is he talking to a future generation? Perhaps a generation that will read the words of this prophecy. In Deuteronomy 32, we see that God speaks to Moses that same day about him seeing the land. Recall, it's the 11th month and the first day of the month. And the Lord spake unto Moses that selfsame day, saying, Get thee up into this mountain Abarim, unto Mount Nebo, which is in the land of Moab, that is over against Jericho, and behold the land of Canaan, which I give unto the children of Israel for a possession. The Lord has Moses do this and causes him to see the land, which is beyond one's normal sight. But he would not permit him to cross over into the land. Why not? Deuteronomy 32. 51 and 52. Because ye trespassed against me among the children of Israel at the waters of Meribah Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zin, because ye sanctified me not in the midst of the children of Israel. Yet thou shalt see the land before thee, but thou shalt not go thither unto the land, which I give the children of Israel. So Moses, who had led the people out of Egypt and through the wilderness for 40 years, will not guide their journey into the promised land. Instead, the Lord will have Joshua bring the people into the promised land. And Moses called unto Joshua, and said unto him in the sight of all Israel, Be strong and of a good courage, for thou must go with this people unto the land which the Lord hath sworn unto their fathers to give them, and thou shalt cause them to inherit it. With Joshua picking up the charge, Moses dies as instructed by the Lord, and the children mourn. And the children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days. So the days of weeping and mourning for Moses were ended. This is a picture of the Jordan River in what's called Israel today in the Middle East. The so-called West Bank is on the western side of the river. Likewise, so-called Egypt today is just down to the left there. This Jordan River is a popular tourist attraction where many Christians like to go to be baptized. As shown, it flows north to south, considered the descending direction. Now, this Jordan River in the Middle East is approximately 150 to 160 miles long. At its widest point, it's 60 feet, about 20 yards or a fifth the distance of a football field across, and it's about 17 feet deep at its deepest point. The so-called land of Israel today lies to the west of it. Now, the scriptures tell us that the Israelites crossed the Jordan in order to enter into the promised land. Of the many problems with this so-called Jordan River is its location. To journey from present-day Egypt to Israel, one does not need to cross the Jordan River. Indeed, this river is on the wrong side of the land of Israel or the promised land. So either the river is wrong, the land is wrong, or both are wrong. Indeed, both are wrong. The true descending river of the scriptures is what we today call the Atlantic Ocean. These water currents descend from the northeast to the southwest, naturally carrying vessels from the western African coast to the eastern South American coast. But could the Israelites have actually crossed this large body of water? The scriptures say they did. Indeed, for this journey, the first thing Joshua does is instruct the people to take 3 days, yes, 3 days, just to prepare food for the crossing. Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, Pass through the host, and command the people, saying, Prepare you victuals, for within 3 days ye shall pass over this Jordan, to go in to possess the land which the Lord your God giveth you to possess it. So this takes us from the first day of the month through 30 days of mourning and 3 more days of preparation. And Joshua rose early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim and came to Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over. And it came to pass after 3 days that the officers went through the host. And they commanded the people, saying, When ye see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, then ye shall remove from your place and go after it. In other words, the people will follow the ark across the Jordan. More importantly, they were also to keep their distance from it as well. Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. Come not near unto it, that ye may know the way by which ye must go, for ye have not passed this way heretofore. It's very important that you realize a distance of 2,000 cubits is equivalent to more than half of a mile. The so-called Jordan River in the Middle East is 60 feet across at its widest. Yet the Israelites following the ark across the Jordan in the scriptures are instructed to keep a distance of 2,000 cubits from it, which is over half a mile. A mile is 5,280 feet. That's well over 60 feet. Also, as you will see, those bearing the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan. They weren't over on the other side yet, even though they were half a mile into the Jordan. Indeed, at half a mile their journey was just beginning. Joshua 3, verses 15 through 16. And as they that bare the ark were come unto Jordan, and the feet of the priests that bare the ark were dipped in the brim of the water, for Jordan overfloweth all his banks all the time of the harvest, that the waters which came down from above stood and rose up upon a heap very far from the city Adam that is beside Zaratan. And those that came down toward the sea of the plain, even the salt sea, failed, and were cut off. And the people passed over right against Jericho. In short, the Lord created a path through the Atlantic Ocean for his people. Joshua 4:10. For the priests which bare the ark stood in the midst of Jordan, until everything was finished that the Lord commanded Joshua to speak unto the people, according to all that Moses commanded Joshua, and the people hasted and passed over. Now, they actually have a long journey, so they did not waste any time, but began their journey in earnest. The waters were held back until the priest bearing the ark stepped onto the other side. Joshua 4:18. And it came to pass, when the priests that bare the ark of the covenant of the Lord were come up out of the midst of Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet were lifted up unto the dry land, that the waters of Jordan returned unto their place, and flowed over all his banks, as they did before. As though to prove that it really happened, but really as a testimony, they were instructed and took 12 stones out of the Jordan. And those 12 stones which they took out of Jordan did Joshua pitch in Gilgal. And he spake unto the children of Israel, saying, When your children shall ask their fathers in time to come, saying, What mean these stones? Then ye shall let your children know, saying, Israel came over this Jordan on dry land. Now, if this was all that the Lord told us, then one might conclude, albeit incorrectly, that the people had crossed a 60-foot wide body of water. Of course, it would still be a miraculous event, but it would leave us to speculate why the people were instructed to take 3 full days just to prepare food for the crossing. Thankfully, unlike crossing the Red Sea, which by the way would be more correctly referred to as a river or the Red River, we have another piece of information regarding crossing the Jordan, which by the way would be more correctly referred to as an ocean or the ocean Jordan. The Most High records in Joshua 4:19, And the people came up out of Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and encamped in Gilgal in the east border of Jericho. So the scriptures tell us that they crossed the descending body of water, in Hebrew Hayadan, which has been translated as the River Jordan. Now, although the locations and directions and, well, everything is lined up perfectly from the beginning of our journey starting with Abraham in South America, a question or two remains about this crossing: the actual distance and required time of travel itself. Our entire investigation, indeed all the evidence which has been provided, now stands or falls depending upon this one aspect of our journey. In short, if it doesn't fit, dare I say, we must quit. It's time to prepare. So what has God told us? 1. Prior to the actual crossing, we're informed that we are in the 11th month, and it is the first day of the month when Moses speaks to the people and then dies, passing the responsibility over to Joshua. 2. The people mourned for Moses for 30 days, after which 3. They spent 3 days preparing food. And 4. They stayed about a half of a mile from the ark. And finally 5. On the 10th day of the first month, they came up out of the Jordan. With this information, one can calculate how many days it took to cross over the Jordan. For comparison, I will calculate this based upon both man's calendar and God's true calendar. Man's calendar, you know, is based upon months of varying lengths and 12 months in a year. So if we take a look at the 1st, month, we're told when Moses is talking to the people, that's month 11, that's November with 30 days. And we're told the first day of November, Moses speaks and dies. The people mourn for 30 days, which takes us to day 1 of December. December has 31 days. The people prepared food for 3 days. This takes us to day 4 of December, which suggests the crossing begins on day 5. So days crossing in December, that leaves us 26 days. The priests exit the Jordan on day 10 of January, as we're told in the first month. January has 31 days on man's calendar. Thus, days crossing in January would be 9 of the days of January. This would give us a total number of crossing days of 35 days. So starting with 26 days remaining of December, and then 9 more days in January. Looking at God's true calendar, the first thing to note is that we have 13 months in a year. Another notable difference with the calendar based upon the scriptures is a consistent 28 days in a month. We can now calculate the number of days taken to cross the Jordan. In month 11, the first day of month 11, Moses speaks and dies. People mourn for 30 days, taking us to day 3 of month 12. The people then prepare food for 3 days. This takes us to day 6 of month 12, which suggests the crossing begins on day 7. Thus, the days crossing so far in month 12 would be 21 days of month 12. The days crossing in month 13 would be all 28 days. And then the priests exit the Jordan on day 10 of month 1. Again, days crossing in month 1 would be 9 days. This would provide a total of 58 days to cross the Jordan. 21 days in month 12, plus 28 days of month 13, plus 9 days of month 1. Depending upon actual departure and landing points, the distance from the South American coastline to the African coastline today is roughly 1,800 to 2,500 miles. Thus, it is clear that the crossing would be more than a day. Indeed, based upon the scriptures, it is clear that the crossing took at least 35 days and most likely 58 days. The difference being whether we assume man's calendar or God's calendar, respectively. I'm inclined to go by God's calendar. I estimate that people traveled 36 to 42 miles per day. Now, to determine how far they traveled each day of the crossing, I had to make some assumptions. Although still probably quite conservative, my assumptions take into account the fact that the people have been living a seasoned nomadic lifestyle for 40 years. Therefore, a reasonable pace of 3 to 3.5 miles per hour, given the motivation of the Lord, and that we are told that they hasted, they may have traveled for 12 hours each day. Therefore, they covered 36 to 42 miles every day of their journey. At a pace of 36 to 42 miles per day, in 35 days, they would cover from 1,260 to 1,470 miles. However, in the more likely 58 days of travel time, they would cover from 2,088 to 2,436 miles. Given the estimated walking distance between the continents of 1,800 to 2,400 miles, it is quite interesting that God's calendar puts us right where we expect to be. In short, our journey continues. Consider the reaction of the other people upon hearing of this miraculous event of how the children of Israel crossed the Jordan, that is the Atlantic Ocean, on dry land. In fact, the scriptures tell us that their hearts melted and there was no more spirit in them. Joshua 5:1. And it came to pass, when all the kings of the Amorites, which were on the side of Jordan westward, and all the kings of the Canaanites, which were by the sea, heard that the Lord had dried up the waters of Jordan from before the children of Israel until we were passed over, that their heart melted, neither was there spirit in them any more, because of the children of Israel. Keep in mind, our God provided a dry road of over 1,000 miles long through the ocean for the people and kept it in place for more than a month. God did this for his people. Deuteronomy 7:6. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. Please understand that despite being chosen, perhaps more so because you are chosen, you need to be humbled. To continue our biblical journeys at this stage, God's people are finally in the land which God had promised. It is the promised land based upon the covenant of circumcision with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And God said unto Abraham,
Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised.
Genesis 17, verse 9 through 10. This is the covenant upon which the land is promised. Abraham satisfied that covenant. He circumcised all the men of his house, including himself and his son Ishmael. Of course, Isaac was not yet born. Therefore, God clarified that he would bless Ishmael for Abraham, but that this covenant was not with Ishmael, but with Isaac. Genesis 17:21. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. So after 40 years in the wilderness, God's people are finally in the promised land. An interesting fact regarding the covenant of circumcision is illustrated by what happened after the children of those who came out of ancient Egypt finally entered into the promised land. Joshua 5, verse 2 to 7. At that time the Lord said unto Joshua, Make these sharp knives and circumcise again the children of Israel the second time. And Joshua made them sharp knives and circumcised the children of Israel at the hill of the foreskins. And this is the cause why Joshua did circumcise. All the people that came out of Egypt that were males, even all the men of war, died in the wilderness by the way after they came out of Egypt. Now all the people that came out were circumcised, but all the people that were born in the wilderness by the way as they came forth out of Egypt, them they had not circumcised. For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness, till all the people that were men of war which came out of Egypt were consumed, because they obeyed not the voice of the Lord, unto whom the Lord sware that he would not show them the land which the Lord sware unto their fathers that he would give us, a land that flowed with milk and honey. And their children whom he raised up in their stead, them Joshua circumcised, for they were uncircumcised, because they had not circumcised them by the way. This illustrates that the covenant of circumcision with the Lord and his people is in full effect. So where is this promised land today? Based upon the scriptures, I have a sense of where, and if it be God's will, I will do a brief teaching on it, since it is where our final journey will take us. However, for now, the children of God are in the land and able to rejoice. Indeed, life is now fantastic for the children of God in the land flowing with milk and honey. The land flowing with milk and honey. But if you did not already know the story, you might be completely shocked by what happens next. The word of God Almighty is the life of the people. It is our daily bread. Indeed, even before entering the land, the children of Israel were instructed to walk in the ways commanded of God. Deuteronomy 5:33. Ye shall walk in all the ways which the Lord your God hath commanded you, that ye may live, and that it may be well with you, and that ye may prolong your days in the land which ye shall possess. Sadly, at some point a generation arises in the land that actually begins to forsake the Most High. It is as if life is so good that they forget that it is the Most High who has chosen them and set them above all nations, and blessed them with such abundance. As the scriptures state, But Jeshurun waxed fat and kicked, thou art waxen fat, thou art grown thick, thou art covered with fatness. Then he forsook God which made him, and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. Even before the people entered the promised land, God described them as being stiff-necked. Stiff-necked, of course, is about being stubborn. A stubborn child refuses to change their mind and our behavior despite pressure to do so. Amazingly, God also tells us that a generation arose which was perverse, crooked, and forward. Recall, perverse is a willful resistance to doing what is expected of you. Indeed, the people had been instructed before entering the land. Lastly, froward reflects a bad habit. The people were habitually disposed to disobedience and opposition. As difficult as it may be to hear, a generation of Israelite descendants, the people of the Most High Yah, stumbled in a big way and kept stumbling given their stiff necks. Not only did they engage in abominations, they even sacrificed to devils. Indeed, the full history is shameful, and as a people we should be ashamed, for when it says they, it really means we. For believe it or not, this is being said before the generation from the wilderness has even entered the promised land. In fact, as a people, we have even been under the punishment because of our disobedience reflected and warned of in Deuteronomy. It is only by the mercy of our Heavenly Father that we are still here. What do we do? Well, as you seek to put the pieces of the puzzle together, here's just a sample from our own scriptures. Deuteronomy 32:16-18. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods. With abominations provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to God. To gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Of the rock that begat thee thou art unmindful, and hast forgotten God that formed thee. This is just a sample. Recall the golden calf and the fear of the children of God, of the people occupying the land which God had promised. Well, what happened afterwards was worse. In short, we lacked faith. Faith is believing not only that God is, but that He can and will. You may want to check out my teaching on unpacking faith. Anyhow, search the scriptures, and you'll discover just how stubborn, unfaithful, unhumbled, and vain we have been as a people. Highest praise to the Most High for still loving us. Nevertheless, given our behavior, God said,
I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be, for they are a very forward generation, children in whom is no faith. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities. And I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation.